Good evening and welcome to the Westminster Mayoral Candidates Forum. I'm Teresa Bethune, Vice Chair of the Community Media Center Board of Directors. Due to COVID-19, tonight's forum is being held virtually and broadcast live on cable channels HD 1086 and Channel 19. It is also being streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, and the Community Media website at carrollmediacenter.org. Because this meeting is being held via Zoom, our live coverage is subject to internet streaming capacity and may experience technical difficulties beyond our control. The forum will be recorded and rebroadcast on cable channel HD 1086, Channel 19, and posted online for on-demand viewing. The Community Media Center has partnered with the Carroll County Times to provide this programming as a public service to the community. The Community Media Center does not endorse any political candidate or political organization. I will now turn the program over to our moderator for the evening, Mr. Bob Blubaugh, editor of the Carroll County Times.
Thank you, Teresa. As moderator for this evening, I'll introduce each of the candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following the forum introductions, I will ask the first question. Each candidate will then have 2 minutes to answer each question. All candidates will answer the identical question. There will be no debate. This is an informational forum. At the conclusion of the question period, before the end of the forum, each have 2 minutes for a summary statement. All responses will be timed, and I will stop the candidate when there are questions from the community submitted in advance to the Carroll County Times. So thank you for being here, and let's begin. Let's start with an opening statement from Dr. Mona Becker.
Hi, thanks, Bob. For nearly 20 years, my life has been entwined with that of Westminster. I moved to the city in 2003, and from the very beginning, stand for a local producer. I am a champion for Main Street Westminster, businesses, and downtown events. I work, eat, shop, and live local. I have over 20 years of leadership experience at the municipal, state, and national level. I have served on the Common Council of the City of Westminster from 2015 to 2019, during which the council oversaw a period of growth, continuation of the fiber project, breaking ground on the ENR project at the wastewater treatment plant, and beginning the quest for water resources. I have served and worked on state and national initiatives. I work tirelessly as a connector in our community. I connect people, evaluating and finding the commonalities, and working from there as a starting point to bring for its residents and businesses, my ability to connect individuals, my common sense approach to problem solving, and my leadership experience to the role of Mayor of Westminster. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Mr. Dennis Dillon.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Dillon, and I'm running for mayor. I live in county for the last 23 years, in Westminster for the last 4 years. I'm not running because I'm interested in totally becoming a politician. I'm running because it kind of took an interest in me, and I, from family and friends, from the pandemic, you can see a lot has occurred, a lot of vacancies have happened, and things have happened. Crime in our city, the Carroll County Times is well documented. I actually had my car broken into and vandalized right in front of my house. The absence of students from McDaniel in the city is kind of why. Been almost 25 years this year as a vice president of ARC Document Solution, which is a publicly traded company. I run the entire Mid-Atlantic region, and we've been very profitable. And obviously running a corporation, you don't keep your job unless you know what you're doing. So as that with mayor, if I am duly elected by the people of Westminster, I believe I bring a lot of business sense and ideas to the city of Westminster to help us not only get out of the pandemic, that move forward, but I also bring some sensible business sense to looking at existing ideas and things that I think have been sitting around for a long time that haven't been moved on, that I think I can help out. So I'm running for mayor of Westminster. I think it needs a new leader, somebody with experience, enthusiasm, and a brand new perspective. I think a lot of people have been there for some time, and I humbly ask you for your support on May 11th. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. So we'll enter the question and answer portion now, and we'll alternate between who goes first. So we'll start with the first question with Mr. Dillon. So kind of touched on this a second ago, but start easy. What inspired you to become involved with politics?
I don't believe this is a political position, Bob. I believe it's a very bipartisan position that you're basically running a relatively big city and have a big budget, and that you actually need to have a business background to actually work through all of the issues that the city has, and actually have some sense of making moves to make people and their taxes go down and not go up, and look at things. Because the thing I look at every day is all I want is my kids to be safe. I want to have clean water, and be able to walk around and go to downtown businesses and buy things and look out for the city itself, which, you know, I do on an everyday basis. I walk around with my black labs and walk the city, and I see a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of things in the last 4 years that, you know, I think if you put some eyes on some things and have a different perspective, I think I could do a lot for the city of Westminster. And that's my 1 minute, Bob. I'm good.
Thank you. Mona?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a household with parents and grandparents that inspired service to the community. From a very young age, I was involved in a lot of community action. I joined community groups, and as such, that stayed with me as an adult. When we moved to Westminster in 2003, I honestly didn't see myself in the role that I have today as a community leader. And my early foray into politics came as I was at the gym that I belonged to, which is right downtown in Westminster on John Street. And I was sitting and I was talking to a friend of mine between our sets as we were lifting weights. And he used to be a mayor of a small town in Carroll County. And we had very different views. We had very different backgrounds, the way that we approached things. But we would sit down and we would talk for, I don't know, maybe like 2 hours, 3 times a week. We'd sit there and we'd have these really great conversations and talk about how people with common sense needed to be involved in politics in Carroll County. When Dennis Frazier became appointed to Carroll County Commissioners, my friend sent me the advertisement that was in the paper when the Common Council was looking for his replacement. And my friend, who was very different than I was, says, "This is your opportunity. Mm-hmm. This would be perfect for you." And I took that opportunity, and that was in 2014. And since then, I have been really involved, even more so than I had been the previous 15 years, to really work for the city of Westminster and be passionate about its people and the community that I live in.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. So, and we certainly appreciate all the questions that we got from readers, and some of them are going to be longer than others. So bear with us. But so this first question will be for you, Mona. And the question is, both candidates are full-time employees. Dr. Becker, a public school teacher, Mr. Dillon, a business person. How do you see the duties of mayor affecting your full-time employment? And do either of you see the position of mayor creating issues with your employees?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to answer that. Well, luckily, one of the things for being a school teacher is, well, first of all, let me step back a little bit. I live and I work right in Westminster. So I'm employed at Westminster High School as a science teacher. I live about 5 minutes from the new administrative office buildings in town, and about a 10-minute drive from my workplace where I live as well. So everything is within a 10, 15-minute drive. As a teacher in Carroll County Public Schools, and one of the things that I appreciate about the job is that I work a 10-month contract. So over the summer, I have about 10 weeks or so to truly dedicate that time period over the summer to working for the city. The other thing that is really advantageous about my position, also in addition to being close to downtown, is that my workday ends at 2:40, and the city offices are open until 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon, and most city business takes place in the evening. And so I have that opportunity to work that flexibility in with my schedule. I certainly don't see it detracting from the job. I held a full-time job when I was on the city council as a council member. I can certainly balance the two as well. And one of the things that I intend to do, if needed, if there's absolutely a city requirement that would need me to be there during the day, my administration knows, and they are flexible with me taking that day off as a personal day or half a day as a personal day to take care of business for the city. So everyone, I will say everyone in the administration and that I have spoken to when I decided to run was very supportive of me pursuing this as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Dennis?
Yes, sir. So one of the things I did before I decided to do this, I obviously had a conversation with my corporation and made sure that they were all okay with what I was doing. And I found out that we have actually several people in the country that actually do this type of position, and they're very supportive of it. And the idea of being anywhere, I can do my job from anywhere. I have jobs all up and down the East Coast. I don't have to be there. I have 16 direct reports that work for me. And what I can do is I can be anywhere at any time and make sure that I'm available to make sure that everything's taken care of in the city. So that's all I need to say. I will be around when I am needed and what needs to be done.
Thank you. Okay, this one has to do with the fiber network. So subscription fees for the Westminster Fiber Network are not covering the cost of building and operating the network. When originally proposed, multiple internet service providers were supposed to offer service on the network, but so far only Ting is available. Having more choices on the network could increase subscribers and therefore offer more revenue, making the project financially sustainable. What would you do to bring more choices to the Westminster Fiber Network, if anything? And I'm sorry.
So that's an interesting. So I said, Bob, that's an interesting question because, after doing a lot of research, since I decided to put myself into this fray and having some people that work in my corporation and take a look at the fiber network, it's a large network that's built for a huge infrastructure that's probably 4 times the size of Westminster. And I find that very interesting on when we went into this in the past, which is obviously past is past, what do you do now? Well, I think there's ways of working with different corporations, different businesses in the city, in surrounding area to help out with the network as well as help out with how we pay for it. I think in the long term, I think none of the citizens should have to pay for the network. I think we should find ways of getting people to donate, people to come into the city, properties that we own in the city that I think we can do things with, that we probably could get somebody with naming rights. There's a lot that we could do from the existence of the fiber network now that we have it, that we could benefit and not cost our existing citizens in the town of Westminster long term. As of right now, it's a huge deficit on the budget going forward. And I would intend on, if elected mayor, to really rip into our financials, which I've already started to look at, and figure out a way to pay for that network way in advance. And that's how I look at it. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Mona?
Yeah, sure. So, Bob, the focus of the question was about opening up the fiber network to other subscribers. When the fiber network was first established and the partnership with Ting was made in 2014, this was always viewed as something that was going to happen. And in my conversations with current council members, Tony Cavacci and a few others, that is going to happen very soon. And so Ting will not be the only provider on the fiber network. It was never the plan that Ting was going to be the sole provider on the fiber network. To address some of the other points about the fiber, first of all, if you live within the city and you have Ting, I can certainly tell you hands down, it is the best network provider that I have ever worked with. And it's been implemented throughout the city, and it's currently being extended outside the city boundaries as well into accessible households. And those households outside the city are ones, because they're located outside the city, they will shoulder the burden of having Ting installed at their residence. Over the last year, I think the fiber network has been a godsend for the increased population that's been working at home, kids completing their schoolwork, and the increased use of online resources that we've had. It was absolutely an immense infrastructural and financial undertaking for the city. But we are just about where we expected to be with the debt service. In fact, we will be in really great, I was going to say financial situation with this in just a short number of years. and it'll be paid off. And we will have the fiber network as sort of this shining gem of the city that we can use to recruit businesses and foster technology and innovation downtown. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll start with you, Mona. Westminster is home to a diverse community. Describe how you would represent all these communities as the mayor.
Sure. So this is a great question for me, because one of the things that I'm really passionate about in Westminster is the diversity that we have in the city that we don't necessarily see all the time. And so I've started to address this a couple different ways. I have recently been out talking to and becoming more familiar with several nonprofits in town that work with some of the diverse community. I don't know if you've noticed, we've noticed on Main Street, but on Main Street and Bond Street, we've had a hip hop and a recording studio opened up that are both minority owned, who have really fantastic ownership and are contributing to this diversity that we see in the downtown. As a member of a minority community, I am passionate about being a mayor that can represent everyone in Westminster. Westminster has, it's been growing since the time that I moved here 20 years ago. And I've been really happy to see the growth that the city has had in this area. And so when I think about, representing the diversity that we have in the city, certainly celebrating that diversity, making sure that the residents of the city, no matter what their background is, can come to the table, have a place, sit down, be heard, and have a voice in what goes on in the city. And that would be my main goal in bringing people to the table to talk about issues that they're facing. Everyone in Westminster deserves the same quality of life and the same sort of aspect to safety. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Dennis?
Yes, sir. One of the main reasons when we decided we were going to move into the area was for my kids to be in a more diverse area and experience diversity on a higher level than where we were at in Carroll County. So it has worked out, and from that perspective, and from a diversity perspective, I'm all for diversity in the entire city, like Mona said, for everybody to have a place at the table. I've donated money over the years to several institutions in the Carroll County region. I've actually spent my time coaching even the Carroll County Christians, which is a very diverse group in the city. And I fully support working to figure out, and I think there's the one good way from a business standpoint, which I'm always going to go back to a business standpoint, is I think we need to have festivals that show the diversity. I know we already have strolls and different things that go on, but there's different ideas that I would bring to the city that I think you could bring a huge diversity and always have everybody know what diversity really means. There's good examples at different places that I've seen over the years from reggae festivals, etc., that have done well, that I think we should really be looking at. Besides the groups that Mona talked about, they're great groups. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're not. They're great groups, and they've done very well with helping children and kids in the city. And, I have 10 years of coaching, not getting paid to do it, of very diverse groups. So that's what I got, Bob. Thanks.
Thank you. And then we'll start with you, a business question. Dennis, how are you best equipped to balance a budget of approximately $6 million and fix the business climate in Westminster as we come out of the COVID-19 pandemic?
So I'm best equipped because I've obviously done it through, in my 25 years, I've been through 3 acquisitions and mergers, 3 recessions, and then the pandemic. Coming into the pandemic, our corporation, everybody was very scared how to maneuver that. And, basically doing business sense things, got it done where we didn't lose that many employees and we stayed profitable for the corporation. Now, how you do that within the city of Westminster is you got to start looking at assets that you have, see what you're doing with those assets, and then you got to start dispersing them out correctly. On the last meeting, they talked about that they were going to get some money that would come in, and they talked about funding certain organizations. And my belief is, I don't know if we really should be funding certain organizations within, the way that they are, when we should really be giving, and I know they're giving back to the restaurants and different places, but I think we should be funding everybody, and everybody should have a place at that table in the city to use that money and have a say in it. But I think I have great ideas to be able to bring the people that I know, the over 8,000 clients that I have in the Washington metropolitan area, to bring some of their businesses as well as some of their money to the city to help the city grow and come back out of the pandemic in a much better way. And that's all I got, Bob. Thanks.
Thank you. Mona?
Yeah, sure. So this was for balancing a budget and bringing businesses out of COVID. So while I am not a business owner, I have managed budgets for various departments and various nonprofits over the years. And so I have experience in balancing the budget. Luckily, we have a very strong council in Westminster that assists with that, and a phenomenal financial group. That being said, the mayor can help drive initiatives and where they would like to see the vision of the city go. And so when I think about balancing a budget, I think about looking at what our need is, what our challenges are, what our obligations are, and how can we plan for that? So how can we be smart to plan for the future and not leave a burden on future taxpayers? That being said, when we talk about businesses being hit by COVID, our local businesses have certainly not been an exception. But if you look at downtown Westminster, and maybe I'll get to talk about this a little bit later, it's been resilient. Restaurants have adapted through changing their online options. Other businesses have also done curbside pickup. We've had almost no closed businesses in town due to COVID. In fact, we have more businesses downtown than we did prior to the pandemic. We've had at least 8 new businesses open over the last summer. And so while the pandemic has been hard, Westminster has thrived, and it's been encouraging to see even more people out in town. I think I'll save the rest later in case there's a question that goes on for downtown. But our city's been great. It's been resilient, and we're looking towards the future and doing well.
Thank you. Now this one will start with you, Mona, and it's actually another business question. While businesses can't vote for you, they are an important part of making Westminster a place where people want to live, work, and play. So how will you engage with the business community, including non-retail and non-restaurant businesses, to better support and engage them and contribute to this?
Right, sure. So I'll first start with downtown, since this is a great sort of segue into that question. So as I mentioned earlier, I live, I work, I shop, I support Westminster 100%. And I've been a supporter of downtown Westminster businesses since moving to Westminster 20 years ago. And really, you only need to go the length of Main Street from up at the college and to the other end to see the support that the businesses in town also have for me during my campaign. But we can still make improvements in the city. So one of the first things that I'd really like to do as mayor is to look to reevaluate some of the zoning that we have within the city limits. As I've been talking to business owners about some of their struggles, some of them have talked about struggles with zoning within the city, and again, some of these are non-retail and non-restaurant type businesses, and they've also described some friction with the city. And this is something that really needs to be addressed. We don't want our business owners locally to feel as though when they approach the city with a question or an issue that they have friction that they have to deal with. The other thing that I'd like to address with the zoning is that there's been a lot of zoning that has happened recently where we've needed special exceptions. If we need a special exception to put a business in place, then we really do need to sit down and reevaluate our zoning within the city. I would also propose that we use some of the $15 million in COVID relief for businesses. One of the positions that the city could use is someone to research and write grants for development for business and infrastructure. And then the other position that I would support would be a true downtown city manager. We've been limping along without one for too long. We need someone dedicated to that position in downtown Westminster instead of someone that's wearing several hats at the city. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Dennis?
So how to help the businesses and flourish in downtown? I think one of the things that, ideas that I've had cross my head in talking about it, one's when you talk about zoning, and I've started to look at that, you need to rip the Band-Aid off. Our people need to be able to do what they want to do and open businesses and move everything and expand in the downtown region. I also think that when you start looking at things, back in history, if you look at the history of Westminster and you actually look at the house that I own, Westminster was a town where the people from Baltimore came to vacation. People don't believe that, but that's the truth. The Baltimore Orioles used to come to play the Westminster Owls in baseball. There was tons of people that actually came from Baltimore to Westminster. I think we got to figure out for our businesses and to put more people into our businesses, a way to get people into our downtown and to bring them back. And that's how I would work with the business owners. I disagree with statements that we've flourished under this, because I've talked to several business owners that have taken out loans to stay afloat through this. So I disagree with that statement when you say that everybody's flourished and everyone's doing great, because that is not a true statement. But you got to do something to work with them. Otherwise, you're going to lose people that can move their businesses to other places. One of the other things is we also have to find out and get more people into downtown Westminster or in Westminster to own businesses in Westminster too. We do have a lot of business owners that come from the out, and we welcome them. But we also have people that are entrepreneurs within town limits that I've talked to that would love to open businesses. They just have to find the funding. So when they talk about at the council meeting that they're getting 15 million that no one knows about, I know the main vote, I didn't even know about it until I listened to it. Then how you're going to fund with that stuff, and they're talking about funding existing nonprofits and doing stuff. I think we need to look at funding our existing businesses. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. We'll start with you on this one, Dennis, and this was a rather lengthy one. So over the last 12 months, new business has begun at 2 Bond Street. It has been the subject of at least 2 Carroll County Times articles. The business, Wisdom Court Entertainment, is owned by Billy D. Williams, aka Billy Live, who is a rapper and concert promoter. Mr. Williams is also applying to charter a nonprofit known as Find Your Purpose. He's partnering with 2 other local nonprofits, Together We Own It and Rise Up Community Center, both managed by Katie Kirby. These efforts have made notable progress in providing outreach and activities to young people who have either experienced trauma or who don't have agency with other after-school programs. There's been close coordination with the Westminster Police Department to ensure the program content is optimized and that the recipients are benefiting from that content. So please comment on your perspective on the effectiveness of the program such as this, and what can be done to improve these programs. And if we can start with Dennis.
So you said to the last part of that question, because you kind of glitched out, you said to improve the program?
Just if we could get your perspective on the effectiveness of these programs and what can be done to improve these programs such as this.
All right, well, one thing everyone's going to learn about me is that I'm an honest person, and that question was actually posed obviously for Mona, was not posed for me. And I understand, and I've done some research and understand some of those organizations, and I'm all about supporting organizations that are for the wellness and the best of our kids, making sure our kids are fed, making sure people have the education that they need, and moving stuff forward. So I'm gonna back off and say I have to learn more about that, because I don't know all those organizations that you just named, but I know the one, and I know the lady who runs it and does a good job of taking care of kids and making sure they get their necessities and stuff like that. But I think it's kind of a question that you go back to from a business sense. Why wouldn't we support something like that in the town of Westminster? Any type of organization that is a peaceful organization that only wants the best for the town of Westminster, I would support wholeheartedly. So that's what I got, Bob. Thanks.
Thank you. Mona?
So Billy Live, Katie Kirby are doing phenomenal things for kids in Westminster. I actually met Billy about 4 years ago when I taught his son, Skylar, at Winter's Mill. And Sky and I made a connection. And just within the last several months, Billy and I reconnected as he opened Wisdom Court Studios behind AOIO Boutique at 2 Bond Street. Billy and Katie both bring really important things to the city that need to be supported. Katie at Together We Own It and Rise Up is providing safe space for kids. She deals primarily with kids, preteens, and teenagers that are at risk of being homeless. I met with her the other week and learned that in Westminster, we have more homeless teenagers than I could even have imagined that we would have. So teenagers that don't have a safe place to sleep, they're couch surfing, or they're living out on the streets with their family. That together, combined with the community policing initiatives by Chief Ledwell and Major Gibson, have made really positive strides in this community. And these connections are just starting. And when I talked earlier about bringing together various diverse groups to reach perspective on things and to reach consensus on issues, this is exactly what I'm talking about. These are the types of situations and the types of environment that I would love to see succeed in Westminster, because when we approach these problems at this level with organizations like what Billy's doing with Wisdom Court Studios and Katie's doing, and together with the Westminster Police Department, we actually will stop crime before it even starts, right? Because we're providing these kids with the environment that they need to grow up in a stable environment. And so, of course, I wholly support the initiatives that are going on with these organizations.
Thank you. Mona, this question kind of touches on a little bit of your answer there, but overdoses and fatal overdoses are both up significantly this year, and the majority are from Westminster zip codes. What can be done specifically in Westminster to bring that number down substantially? Mona?
Yeah, so that's not an easy question. In fact, when I talked to Chief Ledwell about 2 weeks ago, I was shocked to find out that naloxone is used more in emergency situations and emergency responders than oxygen is. And I was surprised to hear that. And I know there was an article just recently in the Carroll County Times that overdoses had increased within here. Drug addiction starts very early. And when we come back and look at the environment in which kids are being raised, how can we provide them with choices and opportunities to stay away from drugs? We have an opioid problem in Westminster. We have an opioid problem in Carroll County. There's not a region of the United States that isn't touched by this. And in fact, it's not in just downtown downtown Westminster as well. If you talk to the chief, you'll find out that the opioid issue is found everywhere within Westminster. And so providing resources, working with the human services that are located in Westminster, working with drug rehabilitation programs, providing police with the resources that they need in order to help the residents as they overdose. And I'm not talking naloxone, but I'm also talking like some of the mental resources that the officers can use to help treat some of the victims. But it really starts with the younger population. So how can we make positive influences on the younger populations? And to go back to the other question, that's exactly what Billy and Katie have been doing for the last couple months. Thanks.
Thank you. Dennis?
Yes, sir. So I actually, that was one of my first visits when I decided to run, as I contacted Chief Ledwell and I sat down with him. And it was kind of eye-opening because I don't believe a lot of other people have actually ever really sat down with them and actually listened to him, because he has some great ideas and he bestowed a lot of those on me from even a business sense. But when you're talking about the drug, is very interesting that he shared with me that has a very good relationship with our sheriff's office, which happens to be right in my backyard. And he actually has been working very closely with them. And a lot of the drugs and a lot of the guns and stuff that are coming into Westminster are actually coming from Baltimore. And the sheriff's office has done a great job working with the local Westminster PD and working to get not only the drugs, but the guns off the street. Because I really believe that that's where it starts. you say it starts, I guarantee you say it starts in these organizations, and I believe they help, but the stuff has to come from somewhere. And when it comes from other places, most of the time to reach our streets, if it's stopped from the streets before it gets there, then you don't have the major problems that are initiated by the younger kids and going. Now, with the organizations, I fully agree that you work with the organizations and that they help the kids, and I will always work with them. But for the downtown Westminster, in the Westminster Mayor's office, I believe your job is to be the administrator and run a city, and let the policemen and the sheriff's office do their jobs. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. And Dennis, this one will be for you first. Are you satisfied with the apparent resolution for what will be the city-owned property that is the site of the former Wakefield Valley Golf Club?
So that's an interesting question, Bob, because, you know, that's a very nice parcel of land and they got it for a very good deal. And I applaud the council on how they got that. I mean, but they've been talking about this and spending money on a lot of things for a long time. Even back to the 2015 city council forum, there was many people that were, you know, on that forum that talked about what they were going to, you know, do with the Wakefield property. And from what I've seen now is it looks like we continue to throw money at it to do surveys and evaluations. And from a business standpoint, if I did that in my corporation and I waited around like that, I wouldn't have a job. I think that something needs to be decided on that particular piece of property and move forward for the best interest of the citizens in whatever facet that they decide. I think there's a lot of valuable things you could do with the property, but I'm not going to go and expound on those here that I think would benefit the city, bring people into the city, and bring businesses into the city. So that's what I think. I mean, decisions have to be made sooner than later, Bob. Thanks.
Thank you. Mona?
Yeah, sure. So it's not often that a city our size gets a parcel of land that's 180 acres of green space. And over the last years, the city's been evaluating the best use for the area. They've reached, I was watching the Public Works or the Parks and Rec the last time that they're talking, and they're honing in on this plan of a low impact use for that. And the residents of the city, they've enjoyed this area as a park and natural resources. I'm there almost weekly, and over the last several years have interacted with hundreds, if not thousands, of residents while walking on the trails. My approach for Wakefield would be, how can we utilize this property for the benefit of the greatest number of Westminster residents? And when I think about this, I often think about Teddy Roosevelt, who's one of my favorite conservation presidents, when I approach a problem like this. And he had said, what is the greatest good we can do for the greatest number of people? So I favor a low impact approach to Wakefield Valley. I was out there walking the area with residents of adjoining neighborhoods the other week, listening to their concerns about high impact development, which they do not want. We spent about an hour surveying the green space and talking about plans for the surrounding property, mainly looking at things like general use sports fields, some pavilions, keeping some ponds for fishing, maintaining the trails, making them ADA approved, and other such low impact uses. It's been a great asset to the city of Westminster over the last year, as we've been in a pandemic and more people have been spending time outdoors. The city used it for their sold out bunny trail. They held the Celtic Canter there in March, and there's no reason why we couldn't use that large green space for that. So I envision Wakefield as this sort of great city park with trails, facilities that residents can use, where people can come together, enjoy the outdoors, and attend events. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And Mona, you'll start with this one, and this question kind of dovetails nicely with some of that. How would you prioritize the creation/upgrade of the walking and bike trails in the city?
Oh, sure, great. So as an avid walker, less so a cyclist, but definitely as someone that's outside, we absolutely need, especially at Wakefield within the old golf course, the trails need to be made ADA compliant. So one of the reasons that hasn't been done yet is because we weren't quite sure what was going to happen to that property. But as soon as we start work on that property to make it a better facility, right? Those trails will be improved. That's a really interesting question because Westminster actually has miles of trails around the city. If you've ever walked the Wakefield Valley Trail, and not the one in the old golf court, but the one that goes along 31 that comes down, goes towards the college and Western Maryland College Drive. You can come into town, and then on the other side of town around Bennett Surf, there's a whole bunch of trails that go over through that area over to Sunshine Way and go out to the community pond. So Westminster has actually been busy the last several years building a network of trails. And I know when I was on the council the last time, we did talk about the plan in conjunction with the county to have basically a trail that would encircle most of Westminster and have that be a really pleasant and enjoyable walking / cycling trail for the residents. Cyclists are a great group of people to have in town. And I know we have two really great cycling shops downtown in Westminster, and we don't host a cycling event, but that was something that could certainly be looked at in the future if we have this great range of trails within the city. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Dennis?
So when you talk about trails and sidewalks and the infrastructure of Westminster, I avidly walk my Black Labs through Westminster, usually once a day, sometimes twice a day, and walk all over the town of Westminster. My belief is that we need to start from the middle of the city out before we start doing trails, because our sidewalks and within the city limits and going towards both sides, there's cracks, there's breakage, there's all types of stuff that I think we should be addressing before we address outside trails. We need to start from the in and out in regards to that, as well as the lighting at night, the structures, and using the money that if we do get the $15 million on our infrastructure, as well as the water systems and everything, and the leakage in the water systems. How many times I've had to deal with pipes and leaks in my old house going out to the thing. I can only imagine what's underground. So I think we have a big infrastructure before we start looking at that, as well as, what it dawned on me is, and going back to a previous thing, is that, we can't pay that fiber off, the fiber optic, the fiber network. We cannot pay that off for over 10 years due to the debt revolver and how that's set up from an interest rate standpoint. So we have a bigger things that we really need to look at before we start building a bunch of trails outside of Westminster. I'm not saying that we don't need them and we don't have them, but we have a bigger infrastructure problem that should be tackled first. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. And this question will be for you, Dennis, to start. Do you think it's important that we attract out-of-county residents to large events such as Main Street Strolls, or do you see those events as more important to the local community?
Oh, I absolutely think that, those strolls, I've been part of, especially the oyster stroll. I have, family that come in. They were very not happy that we did not have that one recently. The strolls are great. Somebody told me that the owner of Maggie's was the one that came up with the idea. I think that, yes, they should advertise it, and should, because you end up with a lot of people that come in and then they see the city, and then maybe there's want and need that they would come back to the city for the great restaurants that we have in the downtown area, and also the businesses. You bring them into the city, and then they will come back. I think one of the things that we do lack, that we really need in the town of Westminster, is a very good some type of hotel that would bring people so they could stay overnight and stay in the city and go to the nice restaurants and enjoy the nightlife of Westminster. So absolutely, I believe that people should come from the outside, and we should advertise everywhere we can to bring economic money obviously in. And obviously we have to have a number total on that, which I think they always do. But yes, I don't think it should be just for the town people of Westminster. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Mona?
Yeah, 100%. What a better way to showcase our city than having a downtown stroll in the summer. The strolls were started actually when I was on the city council. We started to have the strolls in downtown. The Flower and Jazz, well, actually the Wine Stroll is coming up this weekend. The Flower and Jazz is the Mother's Day weekend in May. So we have 2 events downtown before we even have the election on May 11th. You know, these sort of strolls showcase the city in its best light, where you have literally thousands of people that are attending events and taking back home all the great things that they know about Westminster. So while they're a plus for city residents, absolutely, in that if you live in a city, it's easy for me. It's easy for me to walk down to a stroll, or even to attend events at the Arts Center. So you know, the speaker, the asker of the question didn't mention the Arts Center, but that's another big draw to our community as well. And we're really blessed in Westminster to have that right on Main Street. You know, I had an entry in the very first peep show that they had there, and their peep show, their Festival of Wreaths, that really does contribute to the community as well as the strolls. But yeah, we can't keep these for the residents of Westminster. I mean, what a better way to share our city with the surrounding environments.
Thank you. And this one will start with you, Mona. I think this person read a story in our paper the other day. Both Westminster and Winters Mill High Schools have a very motivated group of students working on environmental efforts. So do you think the city should provide support to groups at the high school level for these type of efforts? Mona?
Yeah, sure. So so there was a really great article in the paper the other day about some environmental initiatives. Lucy Deal from Winters Mill High School for some of her climate work, and I think the Environmental Action Club from Westminster High School for some of their work that they've done. I think that these sorts of organizations actually provide great chances to collaborate with the local community. As a city, one of the things that I'd really love for the city to do is to work with these groups, again, to showcase things that happen within the city and to get young people involved in what goes on. You know, we often talk about getting young people involved in government, getting young people involved in leadership, and what better way to do that than to have them collaborate with an initiative in the city. I know the Environmental Action Club group that has been at Westminster High School has been actively working with the city and coordinating a little bit with Parks and Recs and some other with some other members of the city for looking at potential tree planting areas at Wakefield Valley. And I also know that same Environmental Action Club has been involved or will be involved with an initiative with the city called Bee City USA. So Westminster recently became a Bee City USA. There was, I think, an article in the paper about that a few months ago. And we're starting to plant pollinator gardens. And as a part of that committee, it's been great to have these high school students start to get involved in initiatives and things like that. So, you know, maybe not support them financially because again, you know, but we can certainly support them with partnerships and allow them, like other members of the residents of Westminster, to have a seat at the table, to have a voice, and to positively contribute to their own community. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Dennis?
Bob, I'm not going to waste your 2 minutes and just say that I fully agree with we should be working with all the schools, even the private schools, up and down 140, to bring them all. They all do great philanthropy and the stuff that they do. You know, my 2 sons go to Gerstal Academy, Leadership, Honor, and Courage, and they have to do more public service hours than the public schools, and they do it every year for many organizations. So supporting that, I would support it 100%, you know, and also, you know, the kids groups and everybody else, I would support people coming into the city and actually walking around our city and cleaning up our city on some aspects, because some of the places that I walk, there's a lot of trash all the time. Gerstal Academy, where my kids go, they're huge supporters of the senior center. They do a lot of time and effort there. And I would welcome any school organization and anything that they would want to do back into the city. And actually, I think we should financially support them if they have good ideas. So that's what I got, Bob. Thanks.
Thank you. Dennis, we'll start with you. As mayor, what would you do to improve the relationship between the city and McDaniel College to make Westminster maybe a more welcoming community to McDaniel students and staff?
Well, you know, it's interesting because there's a, you know, you start looking back and you look at back some of my history. And actually I was, where I went to school, I was actually the president of the fraternity, and one of the things I worked on wholeheartedly at the time was obviously working with the town and the town businesses, and bringing the kids into the town to spend money, and used to make sure that we talked to the owners and made sure that we would take care of them and come to their businesses, and if they gave good deals, we would show up. I think what I see, and ever since I've been in the town of Westminster, is when I walk on weekends and I walk with the dogs, there's no one around. There's no kids around. There's no, and when I was in college, there was always kids and people there. So what I would say is we need to somehow bridge that gap. If I look back, people have said in the past in different forums that they would bridge that gap as much as 6 years ago. And I haven't seen that gap bridged with the West, with the McDaniel College. And I think there's ways you can bring kids in. I have great ideas of ways of bringing kids and keeping them in town for the weekend and coming into the town of Westminster. So yes, bridging a gap, having good ideas, working with them, talking to the kids and making sure that the kids actually know that you want them in town, and then also giving them a way into town, because I think there's a lot of objections to some of the areas of town that they have to walk through that we definitely need to address somewhere down the road. But they should feel comfortable coming into town and in supporting all of our businesses, and feel comfortable coming in those businesses. And we have to find a way. One of the ideas I had back when I was in college is we'll pay for the fraternity, I'll pay for the first 100 sandwiches at a place on Saturday morning. And of course, all 100 sandwiches win. So that's what I got, Bob. Thanks.
Thank you. Mona?
Yeah, sure. Well, McDaniel College is actually what brought us to Westminster in 2003. And so we've sort of been ingrained in the college community as well as downtown Westminster for the last 18 years. One of the things that I would say is that Joe Dominic has done a phenomenal job setting up some relationships between the city and the college. There were relationships before, and they've sort of waxed and waned as presidents of the college have come and gone, and mayors have come and gone. But Joe has really reinstated some really phenomenal working relationships with the college, and it's something that I really intend to follow through on. I will say that earlier this week, I actually had lunch with Julia Jaskin, who's going to be the new president of McDaniel College starting on June 1st. We had a really great lunch, and I filled her in on some of the work that I've been doing the last several months in coordinating with McDaniel College and talking to them. So actually, since I decided to run for mayor, I reached out to talk to McDaniel College, and I've been having monthly meetings with the Center for Experience and Opportunity to create additional opportunities for students within the city. And the people that I've been working with, this includes Aaron Benevito, who's taken over for Josh Ambrose, and Catherine Taylor. They both work in community outreach. Tommy Schoolman, who Tommy and I go way back. He's an assistant dean of student life. And starting in January, these students will have a Jan term on campus where they will be in Westminster for 4 weeks. It's a great time for the city because it's after the holidays. Businesses often experience a slump, and it's a wonderful 4 weeks for the city to have McDaniel-focused events for the students. And then the last thing I'll say is with my connection with McDaniel College, I have a very good working relationship with Eric Imler, who is the director of campus safety for the college. And so I see some really great collaborations there as well.
Thank you. Then we'll start with you, Mona, for this one. It's been touched on a little bit tonight, but it's been such an important over the past year. So if you could talk to me about how Westminster has been specifically affected by COVID-19. What are you hearing from citizens, from business people, from nonprofits, and what specifically can the city council and the mayor, what can be done to help?
Yeah, sure. So, wow, where to start? I would say personally, among the folks that I know and the individuals that I've interacted with, well, first of all, we've all been working from home for the most part. And so we've all appreciated having the 10 gigabyte fiber. If you've got it, we certainly haven't had any internet issues. But it really has, it has impacted the community in such a way. I know the Arts Council has suffered from donations and just simply because they couldn't hold events. Of course, we've talked about restaurants that have had to change some of their requirements or some of the ways that they did business. I know some businesses that have been able to adapt and have more curbside pickup. I will say that as we've come out of this pandemic, and get your vaccination if you haven't gotten it already, that as summer approaches, things are looking better. And I'm really proud of the adaptations that the city has made as far as hosting more things at Wakefield Valley. We're having the wine stroll, and it's going to be a little bit different than it is in the past. Flower and Jazz won't be held downtown. It'll be held in the city park, but we are heading back towards this normalcy that we had. And when I talked with members of the council over the last couple of weeks, they think that by the summer, especially by late summer, we will be back at having sort of full force downtown events. So, I mean, as mayor or as the council, they can support the city by providing leadership. We can come back to talking about using some of this 15 million that we are getting in COVID relief. We should have it within about 60 days to use for some infrastructure projects that will help with the city. But again, some smart planning down the way as we think about this, and hopefully we'll be at the end of it soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Dennis?
COVID in the businesses in town, and what can the mayor and the city council do? I'm an essential worker, considered an essential worker for what we do. And all of my employees since day one of COVID didn't have the luxury, and I'm sure many of our residents of downtown Westminster don't have the luxury of staying at home and working virtually. And also, obviously, the businesses that are in downtown, especially the restaurants and different businesses, some of them have adapted and some of them couldn't adapt. And I think we should have been in the forefront of pushing from the mayor's office and from the city council, pushing right away when you knew when this was hitting, to push for people to go, and maybe spotlighting a business every week and pushing people to use that business and helping them through especially the early stages of the pandemic when everybody was scared of going out. But then I also, on another side, that I think people should have their own choice in regards to the pandemic. You talk about the wine stroll, and I know it's got a cuff on it and what you're doing there. But if people want to come out and they're practicing safe distancing and they're doing what they're supposed to do, I think they should be able to come to and walk around. And I'll be honest with you, I've seen a lot of the restaurants in downtown that I know I go to, that a lot of times through especially in the last 4 months, that there's people all ages that have come out. When I say all ages, I mean older generation ages that are obviously not happy of staying inside and have come out, and that's a great thing. So I think we're pushing forward, and I think we should always support and move forward with ideas to help them. Thanks, Bob. Thank
you. Dennis, we'll start with you. We've just about hit the 1 hour mark, and I've got 2 questions left, so we're getting there. Dennis, describe some initiatives that you've been a part of in Westminster. How, in the time that you've been here, help make Westminster a better place?
So you said, and that's obviously a question posed for somebody who's been here for a lot longer than me. Bob, I've been in Westminster for about 4 years. I came in and I helped, coach the team down the street and took them to a championship. And I've always supported the businesses, and I've spent, many, many thousands of dollars in downtown Westminster. To say, without, the question is kind of laden for Mona and set up for Mona, but, all I can say is I'll do my best to help the town of Westminster and move the town of Westminster from a business standpoint. We keep going back of all this other stuff. I think somebody has to have a business mind to run this city that understands X's and O's, dollars and cents, have to have run big companies and understand when you're running a big organization, what it takes to get things done. And that's the power that I bring. all the way from the perspective. Well, I support a lot of things, yes, but I think when you're running an organization, you have an obligation to the citizens of the city that live there to make it financially viable for them. I don't think many of the citizens recently knew that their sewer and water taxes were going to go up bills were going to go up 3 and 5%. I sat in a restaurant when she actually got her bill and looked at me because I asked her if she had gotten her bill and it had gone out. I mean, cars that are stolen, damaged. I mean, there's a lot of things that I can think that we can we can do and move forward with. So that's my answer, Bob. Thanks.
Thank you. Mona?
Yeah, sure. So I've been a resident of Westminster for about 20 years. And immediately when we moved here, I became involved with the Carroll County Arts Council and have spent a lot of time down at the Arts Council volunteering. I served on the executive board of the Carroll County Arts Council for a few years while I served at the same time I served on the Common Council of the City of Westminster. I've been involved in local initiatives when we talk about having some of the parades and others of the downtown activities. When I served on the City Council, and even after, you can find me volunteering at events in Westminster. Other initiatives that I'm really proud of, one specifically comes to mind where I collaborated, and this really highlights some of my connector abilities, where I collaborated with a group of my students from McDaniel College, where we spent some time, we used some garden plots at Carroll Lutheran Village that were currently being unused, and they spent the entire summer growing produce, which was then donated to Carroll Food Sunday. And the residents of Carroll Lutheran Village loved this because the students got to interact with those residents, and the end result was Carroll Food Sunday, which often doesn't get donations of fresh produce, also got a large supply of fresh produce as well. Other initiatives that I've been involved with more recently is one of my neighbors, his name is Rob Royce. He does community cleanups every weekend. So, every weekend we're out in a different part of Westminster, almost every weekend. We're out, we're picking up trash, we're assisting people in the community, and we're keeping an eye out for each other. And that's one of the things that I really like about Westminster, is that we have a community that can really come together and focus on some things. Thanks.
Thank you. And my final question for you is this: you're elected mayor. What is your top priority, and how do you go about making it happen? Start with you, Mona.
Right, sure. What is my top priority? So I would say, as we come out of this pandemic, I would say my top priority is to provide leadership for the city that when we look to the future, does not shoulder our future residents with the burden of what we have. I lost myself. I don't know if I'm still being. So that would probably be my first priority as mayor. My second priority would be to work with residents and other citizens to see where their concerns are. What do they have? What are they worried about? And then the other thing that I'd really like to talk about, because it hasn't been talked about very much at all, would be to support our police department. And so when we look at Westminster, I know sometimes there's a perception that Westminster is not a safe city. But when we look at crime statistics, there's been a decrease in Part 1 crime over the last decade, as well as Part 2, and a total decrease. And so when I sat down and talked with Chief Ledwell, I learned a couple things that can make residents feel safer in their city. And the first is the interaction of officers, their non-law enforcement interactions, and then knowing your local beat officer personally. And so this community policing initiative that has just begun is something that I would really like to see flourish and continue to flourish over the next couple months. Officers have a visible presence in the community. They are in learning about their community. They're engaged, and an engaged community is a safe community. So I would say my top priorities would be sort of this financial oversight, right? To make sure we are planning smart for the future, especially with this money that's coming in, engaged residents, and then supporting our Westminster Police Department.
Thank you. And Dennis?
So first priority, I think of a mayor of a city is to obviously take a very good look at the financials of the city and figure out how we can balance ourselves going forward with the known debts that we have coming, and look at that and how we can best right the city. As everybody knows, when you bring in, different people and bring in more people from different parts, that your debt will go up, and you got to figure out how to bring that debt down. I think the first call to action is figure out why we're raising water and sewer on our residents, how we can do better to bring that down. When you talk about safety in service and looking at police, I am 100% for police, firemen, and will always support them, have supported them. My brother is actually a DC firefighter for over 20 years on Rescue 1. I supported them in the pandemic with face masks and everything for my company at my own expense, not the company's expense. I paid for them. I supported the police. My cousin's a police officer. My uncle's a police officer. Firemen and policemen running it. My mother-in-law is a former colonel in the Air Force. We have Marines in our family. I am 100% for safety of the city, of the people, and that action will, obviously, when I met with Chief Ledwell, I'm in full agreement to give them whatever they need. And also, one of the things we haven't addressed is keeping good people that they actually train and keeping them, because one of the conversations when I had with them was that we were getting people taken from us after they were trained for more money in different areas. So that's one of the things I would also look at and address, as well as, promoting Main Street and moving forward with a prosperous city, and figuring out how to be best for the taxes to be lower for our citizens. Thanks.
Thanks very much to both of you. So now let's move on to a closing statement. You'll each have 2 minutes to kind of give the last word on the evening. So we could start with Dennis.
So I guess how I look at it is, why should you vote for Dennis Dillon for mayor? Well, Dennis Dillon is straightforward. I'm not a politician, a professor. I've never made public policy, good or bad. I'm a successful businessman that has run multiple companies, done acquisitions and mergers, taken companies that we've bought and made them profitable. I'm a husband first, and I thank my wife for letting me actually do this. The last 18 years, I've been raising 2 kids, building a business and doing that, and actually still spending time out in the community as of coaching for 10 years, et cetera. I would like to take my talents to Westminster for a better place. If you care about your tax dollars and you would vote for me. If you care about policies that promote Main Street and small businesses, then consider voting for me. If you care about possibly, clean water and everyone, not having to pay an arm and a leg, I would vote for me. If you care about safety of your family, your neighbors, and the brave minimum that they need, they're going to get the resources from me. And I'll make it very public of what I'm asking for to everybody. I want Westminster to be a welcoming community to the McDaniel people. And I want it to have a transparent government, that I think a lot of things that our people don't know. And we need to look at the Wakefield thing and get that off the road. On May 11th, I think you have a clear choice of casting your vote. Others have been around and been in the city for a long time and have had things that they talked about but have never acted on. So please consider voting for me, Dennis Dillon, for mayor, May 11th. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much. And Mona, you have the final word.
Right, thank you. Westminster has been my home for 20 years and will likely be my home for the next 20. During that time, I have learned the ins and outs of the city through my municipal leadership, community connections, and networking with other leaders. I spend my days in this community. I live, work, eat, and shop in this area, supporting local businesses, organizations, and individuals. I am a team player, and honestly, that is what municipal politics is all about. I have the support of the sitting members of the Common Council who are not up for election, as well as 2 of the candidates for Common Council, Tony Cavacci and Dan Hoff, who are both local business leaders. We can accomplish great things over the next 4 years as a team of dedicated public servants. The city is financially stable. There has been new growth in business. Crime has decreased. There is a new community policing program. City employees will see improved compensation, and we are moving forward with infrastructure projects. I pledge to work for all residents of the City of Westminster to remain involved and accessible, to spend time with residents, talking and listening to their concerns. In modeling scientific systems, there are two end members representing two extreme points of the problem. As scientists, we are taught to think critically and look in the middle for the answer. This is my approach I will bring to the mayor's office. The answer often lies within the spectrum of views. During my prior tenure on the city council, I was known as the voice of reason when the Common Council faced difficult topics in debate. Westminster is a city of amazing residents who I have been privileged to work alongside the last 18 years. I am a believer in the power of people and that when we come together as a community, we can accomplish anything. Let's do this together. A vote for Mona Becker on May 11th is a vote for the future of Westminster. Thank you.
Thanks again to both of you. Teresa?
Thank you.
Can't hear you, Teresa.
Sorry, a rookie mistake, I think. I don't know. We would like to thank all the candidates who are with us this evening, as well as our moderator, Mr. Bob Blubaugh from the Carroll County Times. And special thanks to everyone who submitted questions for tonight's forum. This forum has been recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing on our website at carrollmediacenter.org and on YouTube. It will also be rebroadcast on cable channel HD 1086 and channel 19. The first rebroadcast will be on cable channel HD 1086 on Wednesday. Actually, somebody gave me bad dates here, so I would say check out our schedule. And it will continue to appear on cable channels HD 1086 and channel 19 until May 3rd. Before we go, I'd like to encourage everyone to learn about the candidates running in the 2021 municipal elections by visiting the CMC's online voters guide at carrollmediacenter.org. Thank you all for joining us, and good night.